Sixers looking very focused in the second half. Maxey looking for more. He's got it!
Daniel House, little up and under on the lob, and then flies in with the emphatic one-hand jam.
Niang looking for more from outside. Bang, bang, George Niang!
Joel, the process heavy.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Pick Swap podcast, and we unfortunately come to you today for now the third season in a row after a pretty disappointing exit from the playoffs. I want to celebrate that. Let's celebrate. Can we, me and Sean, this is our third season together. That's a win at least. So, Sean, how are you feeling today, man?
Yeah, maybe the least optimistic I've ever been recording this podcast, James, is like yesterday was rough. I'll say I'm like not in this down of mental place. I think I originally went right into sadness. Now I'm in frustrated, angry. I'm ready to lash out. So should be a good pod. But yeah, it feels like they just continually raise the bar for what a bad season is. And this one might be the worst.
Yeah, I know somebody mentioned that the Kawhi shot was the now third most devastating Game 7 loss of this era. And that's just a tough thing to think about. Yesterday after the game, I think I sat in silence with my roommate for like 20 minutes. And I think total, we probably said like 30 words to each other the remainder of the day. And it was just a lot of sorrow, a lot of just like, I felt very gutted and emotionless and just like numb. And just what a terrible, terrible way to go out of the playoffs. I know we're going to talk about a lot of different things today. I don't know if you have any just like general thoughts right now for everybody.
Yeah, I guess we'll hit on a couple quick points on the game and then head into some more big picture stuff. They're pretty tied together in this one for sure. So, I mean, the first half of that game, Joel Embiid and James Harden did not show up from the start of that game. They played very bad in the first half. I hopped on a little live with shout out Mr. Crockpock from the Pain Lines and Edge of Philly Sports over there. And this has been a clear message of mine from this. My halftime statement was like, it does not matter. They flip it on for the second half. They can win this game. And they absolutely could have. That could have been the case. Neither one of them elected for that to be the case. They both came up as small as could possibly be. And that's what I mainly want to hit on tonight. But when you look at what this team's constructed of, it's no longer the role players that let this team down. There's no Ben Simmons that cost this team the game. In fact, like PJ Tucker did exactly what he was supposed to do. Tobias Harris, I thought mostly played pretty well. I thought he was really effective pushing the break. Thought that was a nice change for him and it was impactful. D'Anthony Mountain was meh, but Maxey still did his thing. He looked like the most mature player on the court from the Sixers' perspective for most of that game. But the bottom line is these stars just came up small. Joel Embiid and James Harden played like they didn't want to be there. Joel Embiid, who this is a legacy game for, and a game that I very much was clear about, like, will stick to him from a resume perspective. If this is like the one thing, this is the game for him to prove everything wrong, to set the narrative for himself, because he's still very unproven, still like that. He came up as small as could possibly be, and for him to look just disinterested at the start of that game is just flat out unacceptable.
Yeah, I don't have a lot. I like as bad as it. I just genuinely don't have a lot to say about it. It just so I feel like I'm just in a place of like they didn't seem to care, man. They didn't seem to really want to win that bad. And obviously, of course they wanted to win. But I think it's the things that come with wanting. Like I think they had the idea like, oh, I do want to win this game. Like how great would it be to win this game? But I think that's probably the extent that it went to. There was just like, we would like to win, right? Whereas like Boston treated it like we're not leaving here without the win. They obviously got a monster game from Jason Tatum. And like from that perspective, he didn't miss. He didn't miss good shot, good defense, bad defense. Like to give him credit where it's due after I kind of gave him a lot of shit throughout this series. Like he showed up big time for them and carried them through the entire game. But like Boston adjusted to the pick and roll. And the Sixers never readjusted from there. James Harden was completely disinterested in shooting the basketball. They were leaving him a lane wide open and just like baiting him into a layup. He didn't even try to take it. He just was kicking it out for bad jumpers or turning the ball over or picking up his dribble at the elbow and like pivoting around and trying to do all this stuff. It just like Boston was the better team yesterday by a very, very, very large margin, and it seemed like it was not only their star players, but their role players and their energy and their effort really outweighed the Sixers in basically every facet. So I think like I really don't even know what to like make of it. It just like took all of the wind out of my sails entirely. I think if they lose that game by 6, like we're obviously like pissed and upset and like we come on today and are still like having this conversation, but like the outlook for next year is a lot different. I think that the way that they
Absolutely.
lost this and how badly they looked changes the way everybody is going to look towards next season.
Absolutely. That is the type of embarrassing loss that should command massive organizational change. It's clear there's just an era of losing or aura of losing surrounding this team. And that starts right at the top. That starts with all these guys. It sticks to every single one of them. And if we really want to talk about losing the series as a whole, game 6 was the one that got away. That's the game that they should have won to advance. They had Boston on the ropes. They had the opportunity at home in front of the home crowd. That was the game that they should have won to win the series. But you still got to look at game 7. These guys scored 10 points in the third quarter. They had the biggest disparity in a quarter ever in a Game 7 history. They let Jason Tatum drop 51 points, the most ever in a Game 7 in NBA history. And for sure, hat tip to Jason Tatum. He showed up. He did his thing. He played like a superstar, which he is. We look at the Sixers. Joel Embiid and James Harden did not. The lights looked too bright for them. Boston stars stepped up when it mattered most, and that's where it comes down. And it absolutely is a significant enough loss that should command massive change. And I do want to dive into each one of these guys. The clearest decision here is what to do with James Harden. We'll start with Doc Rivers first. And I'll say my spiel on Doc Rivers is I've never been the biggest Doc Rivers guy. He's in no part why they lost that game. He's 0% responsible. And maybe zero is low.
Yeah.
I mean, he obviously has some sort of impact. He should have adjusted more. There's things you can nitpick, but he's not the reason they lost this game. And frankly, this year, I think it's been the best job that Doc has done as the Sixers coach. This year is the most impressed with him that I've been. I'm actually overall give Doc a pretty good grade for this year. But the coach is always the first one to catch the brunt of the blame. I do expect him to be fired, and I don't have that much of an issue of it. I don't think I think he's overrated as a coach in general, and I think he's a guy that when you're looking for a make or break to win a championship where each thing matters so much, he's probably not that guy. But I would have felt better about firing after either of the past 2 years than I do this year, to be perfectly honest. So I want to get your feelings on that as a whole, as well as the report. Shout out Ramona Shelburne, who's always pretty plugged in, probably the most plugged in national person from a Sixers perspective, who stated that James Harden is basing his decision on what the Sixers do around coach, that if Doc is back, he will elect not to return. Hit me with all your thoughts on all that.
Yeah, I was reading a little bit before we got on here, and I wanted to say it seems like it's kind of one or the other. It's definitely not going to be both.
And neither should absolutely still be on the table, too. Neither is an option here.
Yeah, I don't think neither is an option if you're looking at what Daryl Morey is going to do here. Like, I think it's a pretty, and again, like we are still so far removed. Like, I think it's good for all of us to like take a break for a while after, the next couple of days to let this marinate for a bit, at least until the end of all of this. And the summer comes around and everything there. But I don't know, man. I don't know what the answer is. I don't see like these past 2 or 3 seasons we've been like fire Doc or change this or trade him or do this or sign them, and like the exit to this hole that we're in does not seem to be very clear, and whether it's Doc is going to go, like, don't get me wrong, like if they fire Doc Rivers, like cool, that's fine. We've kind of been calling for his head for a bit. But like you said, like there's been many, many, many other times where I have been in the boat of like, get him out of here way, way, way more than I have been over the last 2 months. Where you said, like, I thought he did a really good job this series. And there was like a week ago, we were talking about how him out coaching Joe Mazzulla was an advantage for the Sixers over the Celtics. Don't get me wrong. I think that there's a lot of things that could have been done throughout the last season or two that would have allowed them to adjust and have more things in the bag than like you kind of saw the last 2 games where offense got stagnant, got slowed down, it got unimaginative, and just really like people they expected, right? It kind of looked like what we expected to happen. So maybe that does help. Like Harden, I have no idea if he wants to do the bullshit that he did yesterday. If he wants to like go to Houston and like have a fine time and make a ton of money and just like do his thing, like by all means, man, but like at least just like say it with your chest and do it, and like don't mess with us, because like you know what I mean? Like we're trying to
Yeah.
win, like as a fan base, as a city, like they're in winning mode. If you're not here to win, like get out. Just get out and like save everybody the time and stress, because like I'm not trying to deal with it anymore. And like I don't know, I feel like we all just took a step back, and
Big time.
I would assume that Doc is gone, but like I like I said to you before Game 7, like I could see them running it like almost completely back.
But you can't. You definitely can't.
You
after that.
can't. You can't. But like they might.
I get there's probably a better world. Like, say the seedings align a little differently, and the Sixers play the Heat in this round, and then face the Celtics in the conference finals. Everybody probably feels a lot better about it from the perspective of at least we beat that second round hurdle. And frankly, I think the Celtics are going to win the NBA championship. I think that's the team that wins it all this year. And I haven't looked at the odds or what they are, but in my opinion, that's the most complete and best team in the NBA. And I think they win the championship this year. So it sucks that they had to run into them in the second round, but that's still the Sixers. If they want to be a championship organization, which is the what they want and what all the goals are, like it shouldn't matter when you play these guys. You got to find a way to win the matchup that you're given, and they didn't. If you pin me down right now, I agree with you. I don't think it is I don't think neither is an option. I don't think Daryl Morey will do that. But if you pin me down right now, I don't want either Doc Rivers or James Harden as part of this franchise moving forward. There's just too much losing energy going on. And James Harden, first off, had two of the best individual playoff games that we've seen from anyone in a Sixers uniform in decades. The 42-point performance, the 45-point performance were both the best secondary help that we've seen Joel Embiid ever. And frankly, he was better than Joel in both those games for sure. He bailed Joel out with that game winner, and then he won a game without him. That's the best individual performances that we've seen in a Sixers uniform in quite some time. To be so bad in the other 5 games that I like forget those is astounding. Like he was so bad in the other 5 games that like those don't matter to me at this point. And that's my issue with James Harden is it can't be when you're good, you're so good. And when you're bad, you're at the point where you're super detrimental to the team on the floor. And that's where he's at. And if there's smoke to him wanting to go to Houston or having a max deal offered by Houston, or I heard Phoenix wants to get involved, and there's plenty of teams that maybe might be interested. If it becomes a bidding war, like, dude, just walk away. Like the Sixers, if we're signing him, the only reason I would consider having him back in a Sixers uniform is if he opts into that player option, which of course is fully his choice. I would consider doing it on that 1-year deal. If we're talking about a 4-year deal for James Harden, he's never going to be playing a higher level of basketball than what we just saw. This is who he is. He's 33 years old. He's not a guy who takes great care of his body, not a guy who honestly seems that enthralled or impassioned by the sport. Like, we know who James Harden is. He has the history of coming up small. He's not going to get better than that. And to make like a long-term commitment to this guy is just sinking the entire organization is how I feel. So that can't happen. And if he has real offers and real max offers from Houston, be my guest, go get it.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, man, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. With him, it sucks to see how good he did play. And like, I thought he had a great year, like just in general. I thought like regular season wise, he had a great year. And I thought he was good during the first round. I thought he was like doing his thing. And then like just to have the games like game 6 and 7 alone, like just those 2 games in general will stick in my mind. And I'm assuming most Sixers fans' minds is just like he's been in the league for 14, 13 years. He's been in big moments. He's played in championships. He's had huge playoff games. Like where does it go? How does it just like come and go so vastly different? Like how is it one game where it's like you're so locked in, you start the game, like is that like it's got to be and you think it's got to be a game of okay, it's either Joel or James, right? It's got to be one or the other. Like even if that's the lowest the bar will go, it's like okay, we're gonna get one or the other. Like for Christ's sake, then be one of them. Like notice that Joel's not going and get going. Like figure it out. Find a way to get going. He barely shot the ball. He barely looked to shoot the ball, and like. Boston adjusted in the pick and roll. They decided we're not going to let that little bounce pass go. We're just going to like completely ice one side. Whatever side Embiid is going to roll to, the ball's not going there. And they're going to let James go to the basket, and then we're just going to send Robert Williams to send his shit. And like they did it time and time and time again. And then they just scared him out of going to the rim completely, and he's throwing weak-ass outlet passes. And like now we're relying on PJ Tucker to carry the offense.
PJ Tucker showed up.
And he did. Yeah, no, absolutely no disrespect to PJ Tucker. Absolutely none. But like that was the product of our offense was the corner three, and Boston did not care. They were totally okay with that. If the ball is swinging out for a Tobias Harris, PJ Tucker, DeAnthony Melton three, that is a win for Boston, and it was the entire game. And once it stopped going in from our role players, that was the end of it. So it just sucks to see that that's the way it goes down. Bad vibes from him post game as well. I know we'll probably talk about all the post game stuff, and like I'm in the boat of just like not reading into it that much. Like I feel like all of that stuff is going to get taken out of context and spun a different way, and the Joel thing definitely got spun in the wrong way. Although I did not care for it, but like they asked him about his relationship with Doc Rivers, and he said, "Our relationship is okay," and that was like literally like point period done. That's it. Like, do you want to see him back? Our relationship is okay. So. Maybe it comes down to that. I don't know. It seems like him and Joel did really get along and liked playing with each other, though.
Yeah, and let's dive into Joel now because this just can't be overlooked. I personally am up there with the biggest Joel Embiid guys there is. Me and you have both defended him plenty on this podcast. We got to call a spade a spade. That dude came up small. That's the most disappointed that I've ever been in him. And for him to score his first points with like 3 minutes remaining in the first, like he looked disinterested from the opening tip. And defensively, which is where I've been the most impressed with him this series, and he absolutely changed it when he came back by blocking pretty much everything in sight and altering even more than that. He was bad defensively in Game 7 too. He got torn up by Jason Tatum on the switch. Tatum's looked like he's seen ghosts when attacking Joel for most of the series. That we've seen moments where he's just straight up pulled away from a layup, but not in Game 7. Tatum had no issue taking on and got the best of him on like a possession by possession basis. And it's so frustrating to see that because that's normally like at least we have that from Joel. Like even when his shots aren't falling or things going great, at least he's changing the game defensively. He didn't in Game 7. He was bad on both sides of the ball. And like I've already declared, I do think James Harden is a loser. I'm concerned we can throw Joel Embiid in that category, man. Like we've talked all this time about where is Joel Embiid's Robin? Like maybe he is the Robin, man. Maybe like I think there might need to be drastic changes to his style of play to actually find a way to win. And some of it you can point to the Doc Rivers offense of just giving it to him on the elbow and basically asking him to create. But there comes a point where like it's really hard to build around a big man in today's NBA. And like it might be impossible. You can't do it at the high usage that they're asking Joel. And like we've had the Nikola Jokic versus Joel Embiid debates all season. It's over. That's settled. Nikola Jokic is the better player than Joel Embiid. We're seeing him tear guys up in the postseason. We just watched Joel Embiid in Game 7 shoot more shots than made points. PJ Tucker nearly outscored him in the matchup. Like, it's so frustrating to have to hit that realization because that's where we're at, and we have to call it how it is.
You're not going to get that one out of me, man. You're not going to get it out of me. I will stay 10 toes down on that side, but you're right. Like, that was like all of the things that have been bad about Joel Embiid, all of the games or times or moments and situations that have been bad. And you look back to remember in the first round, we were talking about how he would get doubled so heavily and then he would kick and be responsible and smart. And the ball was moving and kicking around. That mindset shifted somewhere and he became like 2019 Joel again in the playoffs where it was like, I have to like do something. And then he would just like spin into a double, turn the ball over. And like, I don't know, like it just, maybe it was like the playoffs just like took too goddamn long because at the beginning of this, everyone was locked in, the ball was moving, everyone was scoring, everyone was contributing. And like Joel was only scoring 18, 20 points per game, but it was okay because like everything was working. That was miserable. It's disappointing for us. It's like, what was this all for? You know, like, I don't know. I don't know. I've been trying to reason with this in my head for, the last, whatever it was, 24 hours, I guess at this point. And he just really, really didn't show up and then turned around in the post game and just seemed like it didn't impact him that much. Like, laughing with Tatum after the game. I know people definitely hated that. Making jokes in the presser, like about the Giannis thing. And, quotes came out that definitely are being probably misconstrued. But at this point, I'm in no place to defend him right now. Like everyone was talking about it at work. And I was like, yeah, man, you just dig into him. I really don't care anymore. I think that maybe it needs to go back to him getting some shit and stop being highly regarded in that sense. And like, obviously he works hard at what he does and he's trying his best, but like when it comes down to it, maybe he should just not play the first 40 games of the year. Like, he just looked like he didn't have any energy. He just looked like he didn't, feel the need to put the foot on the gas. And like, dude, it's game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals against
Right.
what's supposed to be the biggest rival in the entire sport that you have. And like, you just can't come out and look flat, man. You just, like, there's no excuse. And it's like, why is this the case? Year in, year out, new teammates, new coach, new situation. Why? Like, got to look at yourself in the fucking mirror and figure out why that is the continuous situation. Because like, you can point a finger to Brett Brown, you can point a finger to whomever else was here at the time. Why is that the situation? So I don't know. And like, I don't like to be at that point, but like, if they got to start changing things up, then they got to start changing things up. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, and I'll stick up for 2 things. Number one, the Jason Tatum thing after, like, obviously it kind of sucks that they're friends, but these are guys that train together. Shout out Drew Hanlon. They're both a part of the Pure Sweat family and spend hours in the gym just together in ways that people don't recognize. It sucks that he's like the guy for the Celtics. He's the guy for the Sixers, but you know what? It is what it is. That's their guys' all season thing. The post-game presser, so my process yesterday, so I watched the end of this game, hopped on, recorded live on here for a little post-game reaction stuff. Then I had to go right to a Mother's Day dinner for my mom. Sixers almost ruined Mother's
Shout out
Day.
moms.
Yeah, shout out moms. So I'm seeing all these quotes pop up on my phone, and I'm just like, dude, he is saying these things. Like, that's what's going on. Came home. I watched the full press conference. I had a very different takeaway. I actually think Joel handled himself very well. A lot of these are very clipped up and very short takes, which is garbage to Joel, and that is the one thing, like, I'll stick up for. Like, even the Giannis thing, like, he then circled back and said, like, how, like, me personally, like, if I'm not number one, I view it as a failure. It doesn't matter if I come in first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. Like, if it's not number one, I think it's a failure. And like, so I get it. Like, he's still mixed in. One of the things I've always liked about Joel is he is very blunt. He's going to say, he doesn't give these scripted answers in the way that most athletes do. He will answer your question, which I do like about him. I mean, he's also still got the trolling, slightly immature tendencies, which still show face sometimes at not the right moments. And he's grown up a ton, but still holds those. I'm still not in the camp of trade Joel Embiid, which I see plenty of those. And to give the short answer for why that is garbage and why the Sixers will not do it unless this guy requests out, which I don't think the chances are 0 of, but I think it's very unlikely. You rebuild to find players like Joel Embiid. You get that the one superstar. You get that game-changing talent that you have a chance to win every single game on a nightly basis because you have him. Joel Embiid is him. Joel Embiid is him. And I get it. He came up short, came up small. You can throw whatever flame on him for that performance, no doubt about it. But the only way you really get better in the NBA is when you come away with the best player in the trade. There's very little room to go up from Joel Embiid. There's really not. The best case scenario is some young guys, a ton of picks, and the Sixers have already traded enough picks that there really is not that much appealing to go back to rebuilding because there's just not. If they get bad and somebody else is the pick, what's the point of it? So that's why they're not going to trade Joel Embiid. But everybody else, like I think about him as a winning player and a championship caliber winning player, I do think there needs to be some major shifts for his usage. Like, I think that the best version of Joel Embiid may very well be a guy who's like an 18 to 20 point per game scorer, a guy who puts more focus on rebounding and defense, which comes and goes in the regular season. And I do think it's a big deal that he won MVP from the perspective of, I think he'll be more willing to take games off and take more care of his body. In an ideal world, he's a guy who can do it every single night, like a lot of these wings and guards who just don't have as much to lug around, don't have as much injury issues. He's not. You got to play with the cards you're dealt. The Sixers' best route to winning a championship is to make sure this guy is capable of playing his best basketball come the playoffs, because he hasn't throughout his entire career. We've still yet to see a stretch of playoffs where he's 100%. That doesn't excuse game 7, but I do think that's where my mind's at for that.
Yeah, no, I legitimately mean it when he probably shouldn't play more than like 55 games next season. Like, I'm dead serious. He shouldn't. Like, you look at the 4 remaining teams. Obviously, you have a high seed in Denver and a high seed in Boston, but you got an 8 seed. You got 2 play-in teams. Otherwise, like, if you have the best players on your team, it goes to show, like, you got to play Boston in the second round. It doesn't matter, man. Doesn't matter if you play Atlanta. Doesn't matter if you play Miami, because if you're Milwaukee, you can lose. Like, anybody can lose to anybody. you just have to be healthy and ready to go in the playoffs. It's that simple. And it's more important at this point for that to be the case, for him to, rather than like be a top 3 seed, right? Like it doesn't really matter. You look at even this series, you won 2 out of the 3 games that you won in this series on the road. So really, what does it matter? So it's got to be a different focus next season. I think that they do have a chance. Like I think a lot of people are looking at it, and it does seem like doomsday. It definitely does seem like way closer to a panicking situation than we've been in than in times past. But this team will be new next season. They got a lot of money coming off the books. They got a situation where they can, hopefully, I don't even know. Like, we're going to get into all this, I'm sure, at a later time. We can have a more concrete thought process behind everything, but like things are going to change. The core will probably be very similar, if not the same. I would assume that Tobias Harris gets moved on from this off season, which, like, for better or for worse, like I love Tobias. I thought he was good in some games. He cannot make $39 million for you next season and expect to like compete for a championship. I think it like comes down to that. And it's not his fault. Like I'm not putting any of that game or this series on him. Although he did score 2 points in like 43 minutes in game 6, but like beside the point.
Yeah.
Like you got it. You have to, that money has to be used elsewhere. And I don't know how you make it work with like Montrez has that player option and Daniel House has the player option, and
Harden.
Harden has the player option. Obviously, my assumption is that like Harden and Embiid are back. Obviously, Maxey is back, Tucker's back, and it's from there where the things start to change. But I would assume, like you would assume, right, that things will significantly change from like that point of the roster and on, right?
I mean, except what I run into is there just frankly is not that many options for what to do.
That's true.
Even like the James Harden losing, like James Harden's considered the best free agent in this entire class. We're looking at like Russell Westbrook, Chris Middleton, guys like that, like
Kyrie.
Yeah, but like James Harden is the best free agent in this class, and it's like that's the guy I want zero part of having on the Sixers next year. Like if they give him a 4-year deal, this team is never winning a championship ever. Like stamp it, then you're building around 2 losers, 2 guys that don't know how to win, and it's like there's just no way that the championship ceiling is there where the Sixers cap themselves as a second round team. And beyond that, the Tobias thing, well, first off, I'll throw the prayers, the Dame Lillard prayers that I've seen floating around. If that's even remotely in the picture, that's goodbye Tyrese Maxey. The only way that really makes any sense, and this is still the bare bones of it, not the technicalities, there'll be more, but like that's probably Tobias Harris and Tyrese Maxey for Dame Lillard, if there's any chance of that. And honestly, I don't see Portland really doing it anyway. They're in a similar boat of they're going to stick with Dame unless he demands out in the way the Sixers should be with Joel. So like if that's the case, then we're looking at really moving up the timeline to Dame's 32, 33. Harden, if he comes back, 33, 34. Joel's turning 30, and they don't have picks, and they don't have young guys beyond that. So if that's your championship window, if you think a trio like that can win, I don't think you can win with James Harden at all. I think even like there's just the fact you have no clue what James is showing up on a nightly basis. That's impossible to build around. And like I said, he's not getting any better. He's not getting any younger. This is the best version of James Harden that we'll ever see on a basketball court again, and it wasn't enough to get it done. So to me, I think there's a real chance that this marks like the end of an era, and honestly, maybe it should after that Game 7.
I love it. I love the passion coming from you today, Sean. It's normally me like losing my mind. But yeah, I don't know, man. I think before I make any of these like end of time statements, like I had to talk my dad down the ladder today, and he sent me a text this morning, just 3 words: blow it up, period. And I was like, you gotta chill, man. You gotta chill out. I mean, they're not gonna blow it up. They're gonna try to be competitive again next year. How they do it, I do not know. We used to trust in Daryl Morey. I don't know if we do anymore. He obviously has like much beyond a business relationship with James Harden. Like it's very much personal. It's very much personal with Joel as well. It seems to be very much personal with Doc. So I don't know. I don't know where they go from here. And it's something that like at this point, man, like I don't know if I can even fathom thinking about it because it's just too much. I don't want to think about it. I'm not going to be tapped in for the next, I'm obviously going to be doing this with you, and I'll do my due diligence before we get on the mic. But until those points, like I'm going to be trying to just push it out of my brain. I'm going to be trying to think about anything else. The Phils are playing well right now. The Eagles start in August, so like we'll get through it together. But there's gonna be some things changing this summer, and like I don't know what it is. I have the list of free agents. NBA University posted it today. I already saved it. There, like you said, there's not a lot going on there.
Right.
There's not a lot going on there. It is sad, but there are some guys there that would be reasonable, and like they're gonna have to make trades, and that's like supposed to be what Daryl Morey's good at. So let's see if he can, do something here. But I do have a feeling that we should all start like digesting the fact that like it's gonna be Joel Embiid and James Harden again next season.
I'm still not so. I think first of all, I think there's legitimate smoke to him going to Houston. I've already
Yeah, and if he walks, all right. So explain this to me though, because I saw somebody today, and again, like this is why I shouldn't listen or see things on Twitter. I should just ignore them. But like he's set to make like what $36 million if he opts in for next season.
Mhm.
If he opts out, what is do you know what like the cap hit looks like? What does he free up if he becomes a free agent and leaves?
So there's still, and we're gonna have to defer to Brian
Yeah.
Tuparic or some bigger dogs in the cap space for
Yeah.
these full answers. But basically they don't have room for a max contract. The bird rights thing give you the right to re-sign your players and go above the aprons in ways that you couldn't if they were just free agents. So that's kind of the money they're feeding in. That even him leaving, it frees up some money, but not a max spot. And like it doesn't make enough of a dent in it to create. So they'll get some money, but as far as the big ticket free agent, they still don't have money for that. Like they're not in a good spot.
No, I think, but like when I'm thinking about it is again, this is going to have to be done in the trade market. It's going to have to be done in smaller doses in the free agent market because there are some like legit, not like stars. There are no real stars on the market other than Kyrie and James Harden if you want to put them in that category. But there are some guys that would definitely be useful on a Sixers roster where freeing up $30 million. Fantastic. Like, let me work with some of that. And then you talk about, offloading whatever Tobias Harris would be making $39 million and utilizing that in a different way. Like, it's not, you're not handcuffed as much if he walks. Like, and that's essentially, he's either going to, like, I guess the biggest fear is that they say, okay, come back and we'll give you money for 4 more years. If he opts in, it is what it is. If he opts out, it is what it is. Really, the concern is they're going to let him sign a contract worth 4 more years of him being here and that being the situation.
Yeah, that's my biggest fear, and that to me like stamps this into mediocrity. The Sixers tried so hard to escape this basketball purgatory, and it is just straight up staring them in the face right now. And it shouldn't. Like this team is more talented than the results have shown, but I also have no confidence in that to change. And there's still a world where the ship is righted. They find a way, they add like a couple of different pieces, and the mix looks right, but it starts at the top. And like to me, James Harden is a key part of why that mix doesn't look right. And I feel bad because for the most part, Harden's been very good during his Sixers tenure. But what I do feel like is the results that James Harden brings are he helped Joel Embiid win MVP. He helped Joel Embiid have his 2 best seasons of his career. He brought out more in Joel Embiid. He raised the Sixers floor as a team to be a very good team, helped guys hit spot up threes, create for others, did all these things. But what James Harden doesn't do is really help you win a championship. He's not a guy that's going to be built for a postseason run, do all these things, be able to play on every other night basis. He just doesn't have that stuff in the tank. And those are the guys that you need to be looking for. I mean, like you mentioned with the Heat and Lakers, like these are teams that basically coasted through the whole regular season and then flipped the switch for playoffs. The Sixers are like the exact opposite. They like went hard the whole regular season and then had nothing left in the playoffs. And that can't be. I mean, give me Kyrie Irving, let him suit up for 12 games the regular season and show up for postseason. I'll take that over to the situation they got right now.
Yeah. I had a conversation with one of my coworkers earlier talking about the purgatory situation where it was like they did all of this to go from like the 7th and 8th seed. They were like, we can't do this anymore. Got to be a top tier contender. They drop down to the bottom. They make their way back up, and they've now found themselves in the next tier of purgatory, which is the 3 to 4 seed that can't get past the second round. And that just like it makes my stomach turn. What I will say, if I can leave here with something, we're gonna do this for a while, so it's okay for us to leave some in the tank as we go forward. A lot of different things, and Sean, but in a month we're gonna be in an entirely different headspace. Things will change, and everything's gonna be okay. But I want to leave here with something. All this talk about did the process work or the process is over, all this shit can we fucking drop it, man? Can we be done with it? Can we be done talking about it? Like, Sam Hinkie was removed from this franchise many years ago. They've now been through like 4 different eras. Stop like using it as some ploy to like talk about it on talk shows and the radio. And it's over, man. It's over. It's been over. It never really happened. Like, the process happened for a few years and then they became an entirely different franchise. And that's it. Like, it's over. Like, stop talking about it. Stop like using it as some like tagline, man. Like, I'm just done hearing about it. Like, Joel is the process. He was the product of it. The point of it was to get high tier talent to make yourself a contender. And for better or for worse, you did that. And he is the product of it. But this is not the idea. This is not the product of what like Sam Hinkie had in mind when he started this. So stop throwing it back in his face. He has nothing to do with this. And like, that era of basketball is a damn near a decade old. It was 10 years ago that he got brought on as general manager. We are so far removed from that. So just like, let it be. Let it be. It's gone. It's been gone. Let it go in the wind. This is the 76ers. They lose in the second round. It's what they do. So just like, let it flush away and forget about it. It makes it easier.
So, I mean, for Joel Embiid being the process is why it's not over, in my opinion. But for starters, the process did not fail because Sam Hinkie did not see the vision through. Sam Hinkie did not trade Mikal Bridges for Zaire Smith. Sam Hinkie did not hand Tobias Harris max contract. Sam Hinkie did not mismanage the entire slew of assets that he collected. That was all forced upon by Brian Kalanick from the NBA, blah, blah, blah. We don't have to get into all that. But I for the sake of today, like, I think this was a massive step back from the process standpoint, in that like, this now is the timeline that this was supposed to be working, and it's not. It's not there. The process did fail by those standards, and I might just make that the title of this podcast anyway. But,
well, like, but like, think about it, man. Like, Markelle Fultz is not even like a thought anymore. Nobody thinks, and like, no disrespect to the kid. I think he's a good guy. I think that things like just didn't work out for him. But like, Ben Simmons doesn't play for this franchise anymore. He became a nothing, like an absolute zero, right? Markelle Fultz, the other number 1 overall pick, a nothing, a zero. He plays backup point guard in Orlando.
He's pretty
Ben
good.
Simmons, no, and he's, yeah, like, again, it's no disrespect, but like, when you're talking about the grand scheme of things here, he's playing backup point guard in Orlando. He's not playing point guard for like a top seed in either conference, right? Like, when you talk about failing or this or that, like, whether it's like, it's absolutely on the Sixers and on, their management and however they did or did not manage the situations. Like, there were some unprecedented things that have happened to them that, like, it's like the plan, the process itself, the ideology of what the process is. Like, I'm just like, we are so far from it that like, I just can't hear about it anymore, because like, obviously, yeah, it should have been working. They should have a championship by now. I've told you before, I sat down with my dad in 2016 and was like, by the time I'm out of college, we're going to have 3 championships, blah, blah, blah. Like, I was wrong. We were all wrong. But like, this is how basketball is. Everyone's in a process. Everyone's in a process, every single team. And like, it's just where you're at right now. It's just where you're at. I can't keep having it thrown in my face. I just can't. I can't deal with it.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you. I don't know how you can expect this after the big to-do that we made about it and how it is brought up. Like, I expected this to come back at us, no doubt about it. And
Yeah.
I guess where I leave on this is frustrated. And I figured today would be our more reactionary, emotional podcast. We'll get into more specifics about how to fix things at a later date. But I guess like, my reaction to it is, it's very frustrating that after all these years, all these hours, all this belief, all these things, like, it feels like the team doesn't care. It feels like this team isn't as invested in themselves as a lot of people are in them. And that to me is where it's like a huge issue, a huge, like I seriously think there's a real chance the Sixers had already lost a lot of benefit of the doubt. There was already a lot of like, talk to me when you get past the second round. This was like their last chance at a team that like people can truly get behind, truly have belief in, to eclipse that ceiling. And to go out like that is further evidence for all the people who had already turned off. And I think even more will join them. So that to me is why I do think it's an end of an era from that regard. And they're going to have to do a lot to win that trust back.
Oh, yeah, no, and I'm fully with you there, and, like, to be honest, like, I felt a part of me die yesterday, like, and, like, I know that sounds dramatic and cliche, but, like, genuinely, I think that's why it was so difficult to, like, digest what happened yesterday, was, like, I sat on the couch, speechless, for 30 minutes, looking back on time and time and time again, where I thought about situations where I was so emotional and, like, excited or, you know, gutted when they lose and feel like having all of these emotions, and I sat there without a single emotion in my body just thinking, like, they never cared as much as we did, you
Yeah.
know? Like, I since I was 16 has been waiting on this, like, situation to finally arrive, and we get here, and it's just a joke, and nobody takes it them seriously, and all of these things, and, you know what I mean? Like, it just felt like, maybe I should reevaluate how much effort and time and emotion I put into this team. And, maybe I'm the fool. I walked in and I was like, maybe the problem is me. And I have to start like, of course, I'm still going to watch them. Of course, I'm still going to root for them. And of course, I'm still going to be optimistic because it's in my blood. I can't do anything but do it. But definitely, I've reflected on it for a minute and was like, I just, I can't do that anymore. I can't allow myself to get so worked up about these situations for them to lose and then not
Not
care.
care.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, maybe it's time for me to like move past it. And like again, obviously I'm going to be completely the exact same by October, but like that one really it did like cut really deep.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. That's the most torn up I've been, and that says a lot based on the Kawhi shot,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
loss to the Hawks, the all these other things that we as Sixers fans have been through. That one did, for whatever reason, cut deep, and I do think it is how they went out. So I feel
Yeah.
like we can wrap things up here as far as
Please, yeah. Let's end
most
this
of our
one.
takes. We're just headed down a worse and worse route the deeper we get into this, but I do appreciate all you guys for
Yeah.
tuning in general throughout the season, and especially today
Yeah.
after this. Feel free to drop whatever comments you want in there. This is a safe space below us, and I do hear you. I will read them, all that. So thank all you guys for all throughout the year tuning in for everything. And as frustrated as I am right now, like I will surely be back and be fired up beyond this. So hopefully you stick with me through it. Either way, thanks so much, and we will talk soon.